Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show here on Channel 1 Television. Here on The Point of View, we get the right guests, ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. We have a double header for you tonight, a two-in-one show. In the first part of the show, we'll be speaking about critical matters in the educational sector. If you've been following the news, the president announced a couple of days ago that this year's teacher licensure exam would be the last. This has been a big issue in the past with teachers asking why on earth they even need to be licensed. We'll be delving into that and other matters. There's also been calls from Ghanaian students abroad that their scholarships have delayed, and they've been petitioning various aspects of governance, even through media, asking for their stipends to be paid. We'll also discuss the fit to purposeness of the scholarships secretariat. And then look at the WASI as it approaches in 3 weeks. The rate of exam or practice has become a matter of concern. My guest for the first part is Kofi Asare, who is the Chief Executive of the Africa Education Watch. We'll delve into those education matters. Later on, I'll be speaking to the outgoing British High Commissioner to Ghana, Her Excellency Harriet Thompson. She joins us to share her memories on Ghana and what she leaves us with as she reflects on democracy, cooperation, and development. Stay with us.
My name is Anis Hafar. I'm currently serving as the chairman of the Barstow Ghana. What I've noticed with Barstow Ghana is that we are introducing the American curriculum for the first time into the country. And the interest that I have in it is that we want to do something that's a little different.
At the Barstow schools, we believe that true education extends beyond traditional learning. It is about preparing our students to thrive in a globally interconnected world. Our Ghana campus embodies this philosophy by offering a rigorous curriculum aligned with our Kansas City home campus.
Our mission is to promote sound scholarship and to give symmetrical development to mind, body, and character.
So welcome back. My guest for the first part is Kofi Asare, who is with the Africa Education Watch. Kofi, good to have you. Good evening.
Hi. Good evening, and good evening to your cherished audience.
It seems to me as if the Africa Education Watch is now the leading education think tank in Ghana, correct?
Well, there are very few think tanks in education. We have about 2 or 3. Yeah.
It's not a profitable sector, or people are tired.
Well, it's quite a critical sector, and most of the NGOs in the education space prioritize service delivery than
advocacy policy.
Even within advocacy, think tank business is much more aggressive, and much more technical when it comes to policy analysis and high-level engagement and all that, policy influencing, so to speak. And so, very few are involved in policy influencing, but. Hopefully.
How important is policy influence? Because some people feel education is fixed, but you can also say because of what's happened with the past 8 years, free SHS, and the way education has become very political, the advocacy work is more important. What are your thoughts?
Well, advocacy, yes, it's always important because you must advocate to influence policies, practices, in favor of the broad goal of SDG 4, inclusive quality education for all by 2030, and also in favor of all the national education frameworks, medium, long term. But you see, advocacy is not just policy influencing. In Ghana, 99% of advocacy is actually around policy participation. Awareness creation, popular mobilization, and then media engagement and all that. But policy influencing is quite new in Ghana, and with policy influencing, you need to have you need to establish a relationship with the political class. Okay, in Ghana, we are talking about both the MPP and then the NDC. You need to establish a relationship with them, and within the context of that relationship, build, capital that will enable you to influence their plans for education. Most times, even before they become a government. So you find that we are engaging political parties, we are engaging them by influencing their manifestos, and then when they transition into government, we are engaging them on how to transition promises into policies in a manner that is equitable, that is inclusive, that is economical, etc., etc., etc. So our work is more of lobbying, more of building relationships and then influencing policies and plans, not only the executive, but also within the legislature.
So when you were invited to be part of the committee to review the educational sector, this was naturally something you would be happy to be part of, irrespective of which government it was, correct?
Yes, because we started working with the NDC Manifesto Committee in 2020, the old Manifesto Committee in 2020, ahead of that particular election, and we started working with the NDC Education and MPP Education Manifesto, same around that time. And so there's a history of our engagement with the new government as far back as 2020 when they were doing that manifesto for that year. And the manifesto for that year didn't change significantly from what was presented in 2024. And so there was a relationship already built with the members of the committee, most of whom were not changed. And then also there was an established relationship by virtue of our policy influencing strategy working with the executive. We had a lot of relationships and influences within the NDC Education Caucus in Parliament, working with APAC and
Peter Notu,
all those honorable members of Parliament. We've been working with since 2000,
I see.
On the Select Committee on Education. And so there was a relationship,
So you were part of this, was it 7-member committee that reviewed the educational sector?
8-member committee.
8-member committee.
Yes.
Finished your work?
Yes, we completed our work about a month ago. The report was submitted to His Excellency, the President, about 3 weeks, if not a month ago. We are waiting for the government to issue a white paper or issue directives on the next steps. And so, as you are aware, the report is not yet in the public domain because it is now within the bosom of the executive.
I see. So we will come to that when so basically they will issue a white paper and then we know whether they accept your work or not.
Yeah, well, we are not too sure what the approach towards acceptance and implementation would be. Whether it will follow the white paper approach where the white paper will either validate or, if you like, focus on the aspect that they disagree, which is likely to be less, so that the report is implemented with the proviso that there is some disagreement on ABC. Or it will be a white paper that simply says that, well, these are the areas we agree with you, and so let's move to implementation. But we are supposed to, as part of our mandate, to not only put together that report, but also develop an action plan. And so we have not been able to move to the action plan stage because we are yet to receive a formal response from the executive in respect of the recommendations made in that report.
We will not go into all the details because you are not the spokesperson for the committee, and so we respect the process. But I think the big issue this week has been the teacher licensure exams. I think it was announced that this round will be the last, suggesting that the government is going to phase it out. They don't want the licensure exam again. Why has it been so controversial, this issue of the licensure exam?
The licensure examination has been controversial because almost every big-ticket education policy issue in Ghana has been politicized since the introduction of free senior high school. The second reason why it has been politicized is because there are many student teachers who are not happy with the licensure regime, because the regime was failing about 30% on average of student teachers that wrote the examination in a particular year. So they were expecting that since the MPP government introduced the licensure full scale, a new political authority, would be the best to review the licensure.
So the teachers never agree with the exam?
The student teachers had issues with the examination because of the high failure rates and also because of the inconvenience in writing an examination almost 1 year after you have completed school. Because according to the law, you are supposed to write the license after completing the program of study leading to the award of your bachelor's degree. And by completing, it means that you should have your certificate, you should have graduated. And so you go to school, you complete school, you come and stay home for a couple of months, and then you are a bit disconnected, and then you are now supposed to go and write the license examination. So there were issues with that, and then other issues in respect of the alignment of the questioning parameters to the national teaching standards and then the curriculum, and also there were issues relating to if you like, the paper-based, or some also say theory-based assessment vis-a-vis the practical aspect of teaching, which they thought was important, and a lot more other issues. So people, some who were not happy with the system, thought that the best way to have it reviewed would be under a new government. So when the NDC government was in opposition and they were campaigning, the president went around the country, engaged teachers especially, extensively, because they had lots of promises in the education sector. So one of the concerns that emerged from those consultations, was the need to review the license. So that's why perhaps, yes, even though there are concerns, the reform leading to those concerns being addressed have been quite grounded in politics.
So NAGRAT said that this was a good decision because they've been saying that they didn't see the purpose of the exam. Did the committee that reviewed the sector recommend that it be phased out as well?
No, it's important for me to state this, that the review of the license started last year.
Okay.
Last year, somewhere mid-last year, Honorable Educhum put together a committee chaired by his deputy minister, comprising other members, including the reps from the College of Education. My very good friend, Professor Atin Tonu, Accra College of Education principal, was part of the committee, with the aim of reviewing the license to address some of these challenges, including the possibility of integrating it within the tertiary education system, the teacher education system, so that you don't finish school, come home, and write it after. Okay. Now, the committee presented this report. Among others, it wasn't impossible. It wasn't an issue. And they thought that it was possible to integrate it. So I want to see the work of this committee that the minister established as building upon the reform progress or reform proposals that were made but were not implemented, in the past administration. And building upon is good for policy development, because in implementing policies, you don't just, you just don't bring new ideas from nowhere, but I try and build upon from the lessons from policy implementation. And so the recommendations of this particular committee includes, among others, integrating the license examination at the faculty level, such that if I'm writing my final semester examination, if I finish today, the next day also I write my license, so that there's no disconnect between me going home after 6 months, I graduate, get my certificate before I go and write the license. You understand? So that is one of the recommendations.
Okay.
But that aligns with the practice in the health sector.
Okay.
That's how the nurses do this. And so
it's one exam or one sitting?
Yes, it's one sitting, but not one exam, because
of course, different
still
levels,
it is the same National Teaching Council that will come and administer the license in your school.
Correct.
It's the same licensing body, the regulator. That will
but
come
it's
in.
exam period, so at least you know you are writing all your exams.
So there's no break.
Yes.
There's no 6-month break. You are in school. Good. The second proposal I am told that has been made by the committee is that in determining the scoring for the licensor, a significant portion of the scoring should come from practical assessment. That is what they call practicum, where teachers teaching practice. Then they are observed and graded by their supervisors, etc., including the National Teaching Council. In which case, it will mean that the so-called theoretical base or the paper-based examination will now be augmented with a practical assessment, which could take as much as 30% of the 100% scores assigned to the license examination. Right. So these are the two major reforms likely to happen as part of government efforts to move the licensure to the faculty or to the college. So if you look at it critically, licensure hasn't been abolished. The Ghana teacher license, GTLE, the Ghana teacher license examination, will take place, but it will take place at the faculty or at the college level. And it will still be administered by the National Teaching Council. If a student teacher fails that paper, they will not be licensed. And so it is still very relevant. And for me, we need it for quality assurance. If we abolish that particular examination conducted by that external body, we will be admitting many people whom I reviewed their scripts personally, who couldn't put together a sentence in English. They will be admitting them, all of them, in our classroom, and that will be disaster. So we need licensure. The fact that it is conducted by an independent body and not the faculty or the
critical.
It is very, very important.
So it will still remain that way, just that the time is going to be the same.
And then there will be the practical,
Wonderful.
The practical assessment.
The other issue has been scholarships. This week, some Ghanaian students abroad reached out to us on air saying that they risk dismissal, deportation for not paying their fees. Now, in the course of that discussion, we interviewed Peter Nochukotoi, who is the chair of the Education Committee, who says one of the reasons why they have had to take a look at the scholarship secretariat to come up with a new bill is some of these issues. So they're basically linking the bottlenecks in remitting students to the fact that the secretariat has not been set up well and scholarship registration has been poor. So that's the link he gave. What I want you to tell me is, are those two necessarily connected? That's number one. Number two, if the scholarship secretariat should change, is what is being proposed in the bill the way to go? So let's answer question one. The fact that almost every year people are on scholarship, they don't get paid, they are deported, they are dismissed. Is it because of the way the secretariat has been set up?
The poor management of the disbursements of scholarship stipends to foreign scholarship beneficiaries may be a function of one or two or more deficits in scholarship administration in Ghana.
Okay.
The institutional framework may be one, but I don't think that will be the key reason. The key reason is budgeting.
Budgeting?
Yeah, because there's a budget with very, very poor or very, very low level of budget credibility. There's a budget allocated, but releases are slow. And so it's not a priority for budgeting. I'm not talking about budget approval, I'm talking about budget credibility.
Yeah.
So budget execution is very, very low. There's delays. And so that's the main thing. If the agency exists under the office of the president and it's a priority, releases will be expedited in line with their cash flow requirement. But if it's not a priority, it can be under any ministry. Okay. It will still suffer the same inertia when it comes to release of funds that have been approved in the budget.
That is fair. But beyond this latest round of disbursement issues, generally, there are people who believe the scholarship secretariat is not fit for purpose because scholarship administration does not tend to benefit the real intended people. That's the view, whether it's Cocoa Board or other scholarships. There's a view that the way the secretariat is set up, only political people and their cronies get the scholarships. And they trace that to the way the secretariat and the administrative arrangement around it. Do you agree?
Of course, that's right. The public scholarship system is not designed to serve the members of the public who require the scholarships. It is designed to serve the political elites. That's why it was put under the office of the president. It should have been under the education ministry long ago. And so it runs strictly under an opaque system. I mean, opacity is one of the key canons in scholarship administration in Ghana. Before you get information about how scholarships are awarded, I'm talking criteria, beneficiaries, it will take an arm and a leg, sometimes a year, before the scholarship secretariat will respond to an RTI. Last year, we submitted 3 RTIs or so to the scholarship secretariat between 2023 and 2024. None of them was responded to. And so you would agree that, yes, it is always airtight because it is seen as a cult, for very few people. And that is obviously not a responsive public scholarship scheme.
Okay.
We have so many global best practices, to learn from if we really want to make our scholarship system responsive to the needs of the people. If we want to build a scholarship system based on meritocracy then we have so many examples to learn from.
I have seen a memorandum you sent to the Minister for Education, Ministry of Education, on 11th of April this year, asking for scholarship reform and 10 basic proposals. I have also seen the draft bill that Mr. Nochukoto is telling me will be laid before the Parliament this week. Is what they are doing what you are proposing?
I have had opportunity. I was excited when I heard that the bill had been drafted and was going for first reading.
Okay.
I was excited because it was a first step in trying to build an institution for managing public scholarships in Ghana. That's the first thing, to have a legal framework and an institutional framework. We've not had same since 1940s or 50s or 60s, when the scholarship secretariat was established by Kwame Nkrumah. Second is that I thought that, as promised by the NDC administration, we were going to put in place a legislation to end the cronyism and the politicized distribution of scholarships. So that was a great, promise to support. And so I was happy that the bill was laid. Having reviewed the bill, I reviewed the bill today. Having reviewed the bill and then our proposals, I see that the two are in abeyance. Yes. What we as civil society organizations have envisaged for Ghana in line with global best practice, the public scholarship system, one, that harmonizes all public scholarship programs under one authority. Whether it is GMPC, whether it is Cocoa Board, whether it is Get Fund.
Once it's
public, under one authority.
Scholarship authority.
Exactly. And then two, you provide that authority with the legal and institutional framework to work and report to Parliament, subject themselves to the authority of the Auditor General and other horizontal accountability institutions. Third, that the authority remains an authority. They are not an implementing body, but then they award scholarships through the faculties so that the merit-based system is led by the universities, our tertiary institutions, or the faculties, annually we'll call them that way.
Yeah.
In that case, the authority is now a regulatory body responsible for ensuring that in line with standards, guidelines established by the authority and its board, our faculties are conforming in distributing or in awarding scholarships. So they ensure that there's quality assurance. There is compliance. That is the global best practice. If you want to go to Harvard, if you want to go to any university in the UK, you apply for scholarships in the school. You don't apply for scholarship to a scholarship authority. But there's an authority that ensures that the scholarship administration is in line with law and regulation. So we thought that since this is the global best practice in public scholarship administration, we were going to have a scholarship authority that is a regulator and allow the faculties to determine who qualifies based on merit.
But what they are proposing, what are they proposing?
What is being proposed is a scholarships authority, which is a net implementer of scholarships. The public scholarship authority will determine who gets scholarships. The biggest issue about scholarships is who gets scholarship. Forget about the whole bill. It's about who gets scholarship. So the biggest issue is who determines who gets scholarship. And this bill is simply saying that it is the same executive that is determining same that will do same under this bill, because there will be a board comprising ministers, the executive. I think there's only one from industry. The rest are primarily the executive and their representatives. And then they will do the application review and then determine beneficiaries. The board is still the executive. You understand? So you don't even see the tertiary institutions in there. Okay. Now, when this happens, you still have the executive. The Minister of Foreign Affairs is there, Attorney General is there, the Education Minister is there.
So this is really not different.
It's not too different
from what was there. Just the creation of an authority.
No,
operationally is the same.
It will be the same because the executive are leading, either directly or indirectly, by appointing those who are responsible for determining beneficiaries. If we want to promote a merit-based scholarship administration system and regime, it starts with decoupling the executive, the political class, from the decisions that go into determining who benefits.
So the authority oversees the universities, and the authority is accountable to Parliament, and the decentralization of the award is at the university level.
Exactly.
This is what you're asking for.
Exactly. Let me tell you the good thing about that. You see, global best practice again. It is global best practice that the public's money in Ghana would primarily be used to finance scholarship for Ghanaians in Ghanaian universities.
Okay.
You understand? And so it is rare, and it's normally an exception, that a Ghanaian will be awarded scholarship funded from the taxpayer to pursue a program that is being run by an accredited public institution in Ghana abroad. Good. And so if you have a system where the faculties are the ones determining who gets a scholarship, automatically you are putting your taxes in the faculties in Ghana. You will not be giving someone a scholarship to go and learn BSc nursing in America.
So that will solve that problem too.
That will solve that problem too, because the institutions determining beneficiaries of scholarships are institutions that have already awarded scholarships, admissions to the beneficiaries or the women.
And if there's a need for the person to go out, they will find a way, because if there's a particular course they need to do, the universities can still recommend.
Of course.
As they do for
go
specific...
to the medical school.
Yes.
There are many specialties that they are looking for scholarship to send people there
to go and study and then come and train.
Yes, so still the faculties will determine that.
So your proposal is 2 in 1. It decentralizes, makes it accountable, and also makes it efficient in managing the money.
Because it's, you see, our faculties are the ones responsible for training the last layer, the top layer of manpower, human capital in Ghana. And so if you want to directly impact human capital development, prior to entering the world of work, it's at the faculty level in Ghana. And so if you are asking the University of Ghana Medical School, for instance, to disburse scholarships to deserving students and determine the areas, it means that they are working closely with industry to produce human capital required in the medical field. And so they are the ones in a better position to determine who gets it and then where the training they require will be available if it is not available in Ghana. But I'm not sure the University of Ghana will recommend that someone should go and learn BS economics at LSE when the Department of Economics is there. So that is the benefit of having a scholarship regime where the authority regulates.
So the proposed new scholarship authority bill is not fit for purpose?
As it is now, it is not. It doesn't solve any problem.
Let's deal with the final issue. You've been busy because last week you sent a memorandum to the Minister for Education on urgent actions to be taken ahead of WASSCE 2025. WASSCE is in 3 weeks. And it seems as if you are arguing that the level of, what's the word to use, exam or practice is becoming alarming, and therefore some urgent things need to be done. I wanted you to explain this before we even deal with your proposal. So what is going on here? This
is WAEC talking. WAEC is saying that in 2018, up to 0.8% of papers were cancelled.
Okay.
Right? That's a malpractice rate of 0.8%, less than 1%. By 2023, 10%. It has increased to 10%.
Wow.
That's what WAEC is
saying. So the level of cheating is going up.
Exactly.
It looks like it's post-COVID.
Yes, and this is unprecedented. We've not seen some anywhere in West Africa.
And 10% of papers cancelled in 2023.
Yes.
Do you know the figure for 2024?
No. We are to get the data for 2024. And so, but the trend, and this trend is this between 2022 and 2023, for instance, this trend is not informed by leakages. Papers are not leaking the way they were since the previous government introduced the BNI in the question printing security system. Leakages have been addressed by that. This trend you are seeing between 2022 and 2023 is because of examination room collusion between teachers, some teachers who are invigilators or supervisors, and then some students.
So what are you asking government to do? Immediately, medium term, and then long term? Let's start with immediate.
The Minister of Education has indicated that he is backing the juniors to dismiss teachers who are found capable of participating in
immediately.
Yes. That is a great political backing, our statement. But you see, the Genius Code of Conduct doesn't support that. And the Genius is run by its policy. Code of Conduct for its staff says that if a teacher is found participating in examination malpractice, it starts with the teacher, for instance, being suspended for 1 month for forfeiture of salary, and then also forfeiture of promotion. The dismissal is the last, and it is scarcely applied at the first instance. I know of a teacher who was teaching management and living in a school in the Bono area. We caught him on camera in 2020 or so, dictating answers openly.
Wow.
Reported. By the time we realized in 2022, he was an academic headmaster in that same school. When we complained to the genius that they were promoting malpractice by, rewarding participants, they proved to us that he was sanctioned. In fact, he was sanctioned. He was suspended for 1 month.
And he's back working?
Of course. So, the minister's directive can only take effect if the Genius Council and
changes their code of conduct.
They amend the code of conduct immediately
to make it an offense to be
dismissal.
And exam is in 3 weeks.
Yes.
So you're saying if you want exam not to, if you want this to happen, in between now and that date, they should make it.
In the next 3 weeks, the Genius Council and the Genius leadership have the luxury of convening to amend the code of conduct.
So that if you are caught colluding or helping a student cheat, you are dismissed outright.
Yes, you are dismissed. If that is the only sanction for participating in malpractice, I'm telling you that it will reduce the appetite for those bad teachers who are encouraged to participate in this particular activity. It will reduce that appetite by about 99%. I'm telling you.
Wow.
Yes.
So is that the most important immediate term thing that needs to be done?
Immediate term thing, the second thing is that, you see, many teachers have integrity. They see what is happening, but they are worried. They can't participate. So they simply distance themselves from vigilation. Because once you enter the vigilation room, if you don't comply, you will be a scapegoat. And these things are normally led by some assistant master academic. Note that there are KPIs for headmasters, which are based on WASI pass rates.
So the assistant master academic, they have an interest in students passing.
The headmaster or
by fair or foul means.
Exactly, in some schools. And so you can't be a teacher, enter the room and fail to comply because the KPIs belong to your headmaster. What we can do in the immediate term is that the ministry should institute a reward mechanism. Sometimes we call it out of 10 incentives, where if I blow a whistle on malpractice taking place in my school, I'll be rewarded not financially, but then I'll be rewarded with a promotion. If it takes me 3 years to get a promotion, for instance, it can be reduced to 2 years. If we have such a system with the assurance of anonymity for teachers who are willing to blow the whistle and divulge key information leading to the apprehension of the badness who are destroying the...
You're also proposing that the ministry works with the IGP to establish what you call an exam fraud unit at CID.
Because of the inertia in prosecuting malpractice cases.
So beyond dismissal, there must be prosecution.
Yes, prosecution should happen for those that are criminal.
In nature?
Yes. Many of them are criminal, okay? Impersonation, those rogue websites that are selling a poor, many of them are criminal. Where they are criminal, we want to see expedited prosecution because, see, the prosecution and most importantly, the conviction, timely convictions deter others from participating in this illegal enterprise.
You have said that beyond the short term, the sophistication in today's exam malpractice and fraud has overtaken the relevant WAEC Act. And therefore, there needs to be an amendment of the Act?
And this call was made in 2019, 2020, when we met with WAEC and Parliament in Koforidua. It's been long overdue. It hasn't been prioritized. The Ministry of Education should prioritize amending the WAEC Act. It has been overtaken by technology and the emerging dynamics in the examination malpractice.
Wow.
We are not talking about examination fraud. We've moved from malpractice to fraud. And the law is very, very obsolete when it comes to how sophisticated most of these moves are. And so, for the sanctions regime, the legal sanctions regime to bite well and deter well, WAEC's law must be amended to meet the emerging dynamics.
What about security within the exam centers?
CCTV cameras, global best practice, will have to be installed in all examination centers, monitored by external agents. That is basic. If you reduce the human element or the human involvement in invigilation, you move towards solving the problem much more, because the corruption is actually driven by the humans who have interest in it. And so In the long term, in the medium term, we should look at providing CCTV cameras with independent monitoring of the cameras in all schools. This is very basic. Now, almost every CCTV camera in town is solar based, and so it doesn't rely on electricity, and then it's something we can do. The only challenge is that in some of the schools, examination takes place in classrooms, not an examination hall. But we've seen a lot of progress in expanding infrastructure, building examination halls, and all that. And so, if we have a plan to do this, I'm sure we can do it, especially in the hotspots, and we know the hotspots.
This is advocacy in action. Kofi, thank you for talking to us. We'll be waiting to see what the government does in 3 weeks.
Yeah, and let me quickly add that
thoughts. Yeah.
CSOs will also be having a conversation on the draft scholarship authority bill. We will be submitting another memorandum to the ministry to consider the focus of this bill and point it more at having a regulatory body that to supervise faculties rather dispensing.
So the advocacy is not over. So whatever happens this week, we should keep an eye open.
We are now starting. It's now gone for first reading. It's a long journey. By the time we finish, I'm sure we should have a bill that is fit for purpose.
Kofi Asare, thank you. This is still the point of view. We've been talking to Kofi Asare. This is our first part of a two-part series for today, discussing 3 critical issues in education. The licensure exam is going to be changed to now become part of the end of academic term or end of final term exam for teachers, and then also scholarship secretariat bill, and then the growing rate of malpractice in exams. When we come back, we sit down with the outgoing British High Commissioner for Ghana, Excellency Harriet Thompson. Her reflections on 4 years in Ghana, the state of Ghana's democracy, the move from aid to trade, and where the future of development cooperation stands. Stay with us.
I run from my father, who never gave up on us.
Register now for the ABSA Black Star Marathon, because your story matters.
So welcome back. My guest tonight is Her Excellency Harriet Thompson. She is the British High Commissioner to Ghana, and she's been in the position since June 2021. And in July 2025, it's time to say goodbye. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
4 years have flown.
They have really flown.
Gosh.
Really, really flown.
Where were you before you came to Ghana? What post did you have?
I was in Nigeria, first of all as a Deputy High Commissioner in Abuja, and then our Consul General equivalent in Lagos.
And then you spent 4 years here.
Yeah.
Did you know, had you come to Ghana before your entry in 2021?
I did. I came on a holiday with my family and my parents.
Okay.
And we loved it. We really enjoyed it. So when I saw that this job was becoming available, this was top of my list.
I always ask people what sense they had of Ghana before they came in, and then the sense they have as they stay in.
Yeah.
So what was Ghana? What did you think of Ghana before you came in? And when you having spent 4 years here, what has that changed?
Ghana has a fantastic reputation overseas, and a lot of that has been borne out, but perhaps more so. So Ghanaians have a reputation for being very warm, very welcoming, very proud of their rich traditions and culture, and that all in spades. I didn't know there were elephants in Ghana before I came here. I didn't know there were so many historic buildings to do with the slave trade, but to do with Ghana's pre-colonial history.
Yeah.
I knew the relationship between the UK and Ghana was warm, but I didn't appreciate the depth and the breadth of that relationship.
Were you surprised the number of Ghanaians who supported English football teams?
That was a surprise. That was a surprise. I'm glad to say I've met a few Liverpool supporters.
Correct.
But the North London clubs, I think, are winning so far.
Yes, and also the fact that it's probably easier to watch English Premier League games in Ghana than it is to watch in terms of on television, than to get to even watch it in the UK.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I think that's right.
Yeah,
I think it's probably easier to watch English Premier League games on TV in Ghana than it is to watch Ghanaian football on TV in Ghana.
Yes. And also your football and your broadcaster are probably more popular than your government.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I've said that correctly.
They're very well respected around the world.
Does that sound right to say this? That, of course, you're a diplomat, so because a lot of people will say to you that their first outlook globally, especially in the 80s and the 90s, was the BBC in terms of coverage of Africa and even how they perceive the UK. It's actually through your national broadcaster and then now through your football. Yeah,
well, the BBC has for a long time played a very important role.
Yeah.
It still does today. When I go anywhere with our driver, the only channel he listens to on the radio is the BBC World Service.
Wow.
So that's how he gets the vast majority of his information. And that's a really important position for the BBC to hold. It brings great responsibility. And we do see that challenged, pretty frequently, including recently, and that's the right way for it to be.
So, how long have you been a diplomat for?
Well, I joined our diplomatic service while I was in Nigeria.
Okay.
Previously, I worked as a civil servant, working in various different UK government departments.
Because I asked this to just get a sense of how the job has changed. For some who've done the job for like 2 or 3 decades, they will say to you that it's been, wow, so like chalk and cheese. Because now with all social media and the way things move quickly, it's a different ball game to even just stay on top of what's happening compared to say like 25, 30 years ago. But you joined fairly recently, so I'm not sure if you have that long.
Well, I think still I can talk about how it's changed.
Yeah.
And because some of those changes have impacted, the world at large, not just diplomats.
Yeah.
So communications is one of the key things.
Yeah.
In days gone by, people would have to wait to receive a letter from their headquarters for instructions or to share information or to keep in touch what's going on in the UK. And obviously with email, with Teams, with WhatsApp calls, all the rest of it, that's completely different. So our relationship with our headquarters while we're overseas is very different. Our relationship with our hosts is very different as well, partly because similarly governments aren't they're not the holder of all the information in the way that perhaps they once were. They're also not the sole lead actor in a country in perhaps the way that they once were. The power of civil society, and we see that in spades in Ghana, the importance of journalism, the importance of a free, fair, responsible press when we see social media and these various sources of information, much of it sadly incorrect, deliberately or otherwise. Yeah. Those things are all big changes for the world of diplomacy, but more widely too.
So with leaders now directly tweeting, I'm not sure, does your job allow you to do regular social media posts personally?
Well, I sort of feel like I don't have an entirely personal life as a High Commissioner. I'm never off duty, so my posts tend to be professional.
Okay.
But it's very hard to separate the professional and the personal. So there are personal bits thrown in there. I suppose my barrier is no photos of my kids.
Yeah, even for we in the media, some of us do that as well. What always fascinates me when I speak to diplomats is the difference in our jobs. Because my job, you have airtime to fill on radio with words. But it seems as if a lot of your job has to do with being economical with words. No, that's the wrong word. Being less generous. So it's always difficult because I suspect that long answers aren't good.
I think the received wisdom in my organization, at least, I won't speak for other diplomatic services, is that the more you speak, the more likely you are to cloud the point that you want to land.
The more you speak, the more likely you are to cloud the point you want to
land.
land.
If I say to you, Bernard, I like you.
Okay.
That's a very clear message.
Yes.
If I say to you, Bernard, last week we did this, and then before that we did this, and over the years I've built up this relationship, and I like you, and I hope that in the future, then that clear message, I like you, is lost in all of the sound.
That's an interesting thought. All right, so let's talk about another sort of transition. So another difference in terms of the times we're in, right? 2025, the world is a very different place than it was even, 5 years ago with COVID. Okay, let's talk about Britain's place in the world, because of course 100 years ago you were the big country. Somehow people feel like the United Kingdom has become much less significant in terms of global power, although culturally and symbolically it is still a very popular country. Is that something you accept? That you are not necessarily like a global superpower? Is that?
So if you go back 100 years,
yeah,
that was the time of the British Empire.
Yeah.
Speaking non-officially, which is difficult for me to do as a High Commissioner on TV, it's right that the world has moved on from that.
Okay.
It's obviously right that Ghana is an independent country, not a colony of the UK.
Yeah.
And of course, that changes the UK's position in the world, and it's right that that change has happened. But the UK remains a very active leader in the world. I think, importantly, in a more respectful way. So there is not this sense now that the UK needs to dominate. The UK needs to try to be the leader. The UK wants to work in partnership, and we see that really clearly in the way that our relationship with Ghana has changed over the years. You know, go back to 1957 when Ghana was getting independence to today. When today, as I move on from Ghana, I see this very forward-looking, very modern partnership where we are working together on areas of mutual benefit for each other. And for me, that's a really positive change.
Is there also less interest from your country's perspective, from both citizens and possibly from politicians, of what happens outside? And I'm asking this because not only have we seen certain types of governments come into power in the Western world, we've also seen policies that have been more, look, let's fix our problems first, and let's not extend our resources too much to the outside. So there seems to be this idea that, look, we are already having our own problems. So both from the citizens, in the way they vote and the kind of people they vote for, and also even in some of the politics, there seems to be this pullback. Am I correct? Generally for Western countries, generally.
I think the idea that a country, any country, can solve its problems by looking domestically is for the birds. We're no longer in that world. No country can afford not to look outward.
Okay.
When we look at our economic situation and the way that supply chains depend on inputs from all over the world, when we look at our security situation, when we look at the migration that's coming into the UK and is providing such a topic of controversy currently at the moment in my country, for example, we can't look at any of these problems in isolation. We know that for the global economy to grow, each country's economy needs to grow. So for the UK, my government's top priority is economic growth. For us to realise that economic growth, we need for the global economy to grow.
Yeah.
So we can't isolate domestic problems from the international picture.
But you agree that even with things like Brexit, there seems to be some less tolerance for outside issues among voters?
I think there is a real focus on people's own daily lives at a time when, you know, particularly due to the pandemic, countries around the world have felt that economic impact and still feel the economic impact. And that translates into families' own spending, what they are able to put on the table, the roof over their heads and so on. And therefore, I think it's not surprising that people focus in on their own interests. I suppose my point is that you can't resolve those interests without looking outside and thinking about the world within which your country is placed.
Yeah. Do you agree that we're in a period of uncertainty geopolitically, where because of some of the signals being sent from places like Washington and Beijing, people are not really sure of economically where they are at? Some people even think that where the world was from 1945, Bretton Woods, and the way the world was structured may not necessarily last, because we're seeing tariffs being thrown everywhere, trade war threats, you know. So people feel like, look, USAID has withdrawn from the world, it's been collapsed, right? So there's a certain sense that the world is changing right before our eyes, and yet we've not been able to properly contextualize because we're living through it. But we may never see the world in the way it's been for the past 80 years anymore. Am I overstretching that point?
No, I completely agree. I completely agree. But I think change is constant. and we need to not expect for a period of change to come to an end and then there'll be stability and then we'll have the next period of change. It's more that it's a constant thing.
Yeah.
I agree too that the post-war period is over, and there's some good and some greater challenges in that. We have just in the UK produced a strategic defence review document which said that in the next 10 years the UK population needs to be ready for the prospect of war. Now that's something that many of us have not experienced in our lifetime, so that's a huge change for us. But also part of that change is what I was talking about earlier, and the changed nature of relationships internationally. It's right that countries like the UK really pay attention to what the BRICS countries, for example, want to see in the world order. So there's some healthy change as well as some more challenging change in that picture.
Yeah. And last point there, before I come to Ghana. So does that mean that things like the Commonwealth become more important? And I ask this because we always thought you had a special relationship with the US, right? Now, I think even you were not spared some of the tariff adjustments. So clearly, that special relationship, even though it may still be there, doesn't necessarily mean the same thing. And of course, we know your history with the EU as well. So, but you have this committee of nations who speak the language, who meet once a year, who share certain things. So are you now saying, look, maybe we need to take the Commonwealth a bit more seriously, not just as a place to speak nice English, but probably as a vehicle for something different? I'm not sure.
The UK does take the Commonwealth seriously. It's a really valuable institution, and we're delighted that Shiliako Butchwe is now the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, and we're looking forward to what she will do during her tenure to really make sure that that institution is relevant to people living around the Commonwealth. And that means particularly relevant to young people around the world, because such a vast proportion of the Commonwealth population are people under 35. Yeah. In today's world, I think we need to be much more agile. All countries need to be more agile in the partnerships that they hold. So it's not, for example, UK as part of G7.
Yeah.
Yes, we are part of G7, and that's a very valuable set of relationships for us. Yes, we have a special relationship with the US, and that endures. Yes, we have an important but different relationship with the EU. But across different issues, we'll want to form different alliances. Yeah. And I think we saw that when we worked with Ghana on the UN Security Council, for example. Yeah. The range of different voices coming together and recognizing that on different issues, you can have a different set of partners who work together, make faster progress, for example, where their interests are aligned. I think that's the way the world is going.
Relating this to West Africa, we noticed that some of the countries that have gone out of ECOWAS, where you can say generally there's less stability, also tend to have a lot of their young people feel aggrieved by their former colonial power. That seems to be a trend. Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and that whole area. That doesn't seem to have happened in the English-speaking countries, though. So is it because the way you relate with countries that you used to have that relationship is different? Because we don't see the same level of, how shall I say, there's a lot of anti-French feeling among young Francophone West Africans. That doesn't necessarily seem to be happening in Kenya or Ghana or even, I don't know, Nigeria. Is that a proper assessment of the situation?
So rather than try to talk about another country's set of relationships, let me focus on the UK side of things. Yeah. So we have developed this relationship of respect that I've talked about previously. We respect Ghana, Nigeria, other countries as independent partners, and we recognize that we are one of their partners amongst many. And we endeavor to support those countries without interfering in those countries and in the path that those countries choose to take. So When I arrived, first of all, in Nigeria 8 years ago, I was touched by the warmth in that relationship. And that has only been emphasized in my time here in Ghana. And I've been reflecting with my team over particularly the last couple of weeks as I move towards my departure. I've been involved in some of the celebrations, the anniversaries, particularly last year around the sacking of Kumasi, or the return of the Asantehene Prempeh II from the Seychelles, where he was put in exile by the British colonials at the time. And the fact that we can be together commemorating these important anniversaries that actually commemorate a really difficult time in our relationship. And yet today we have this modern, future-focused partnership of equals, lots of two-way learning. That's really a remarkable thing. And I think it's testament to the deep connections between the people of the two countries and the respect that we hold each other in.
This is the point of view. My guest is Her Excellency Harriet Thompson. She's been in Ghana for 4 years, and she takes a bow out of this territory. We're reflecting on some of the stuff she's done. When we come back, we'll talk a bit more about the Ghana aspect of the work, and also some issues around democracy and some of the support they've given Ghana, and whether this whole partnership of equals and from aid to trade is actually working in reality. Stay with us.
Remember who we are seeing now. At risk of prostate enlargement. We a member or her 20 ebitimi prostate cancer, 5 bitimi afamu na dia obefamu.
Actually, this is not my fault.
And to wada, entina medi mani Executive Prostate Center.
Executive Prostate Center is a unique medical center where we harmonize in-depth traditional medicine with cutting-edge science and technology to cure, to treat, and to prevent diseases like prostate enlargement, prostate cancer.
Executive Prostate Center. Madame home. Facilities no any professional medical care.
Sisi a bibia clear system no. Ye nro ne so de natural. Into we koso afama ye.
Executive Prostate Center. My cured.
Welcome back. This is still The Point of View. Tonight we're speaking to Her Excellency Harriet Thompson, the outgoing British High Commissioner to Ghana. Does your post have other countries? You know, some of your colleagues will say Ghana, Liberia. So are you also Ghana, something, or just Ghana?
I have also been responsible for Togo and Benin.
Wow, so 3 countries. That must be a lot. But I can see a lot more happens here.
Yeah.
A lot more happens here. Ghana is the center. All right. Aid to trade is what I keep hearing you say, and I also keep hearing you say a partnership of equals. I agree with that, but I also challenge that. All right, so we are equals in the sense that we come to the table and we have equal right to say what we want, but we are not equals because your country is more developed. You have better technology. You are more prosperous. You have an older population, you have a younger population. We are at different stages of development. So I understand when you say we are a partnership of equals, but I also think it sort of denies the need for some catch-up. And you are not the only person who says that. The Americans say it, even I spoke to the Danish, they keep saying it. I don't agree with that. I feel like we need to acknowledge that we are equal objectively, but we need to accept that there are some differences which require different approaches. I don't know if you can comment on that.
Yeah, so I think when we talk about partnership of equals, we're talking about the need for mutual respect.
Yeah.
And that has not always been present when we have talked about development relationships in the past. Now, I'm not talking about a universal truth by any stretch, but when you have the idea of a donor and recipient partnership, then that implies that one person is on the receiving end of something that somebody else is doing. That's not a healthy partnership. In order to really make progress together, I think, there need to be shared objectives. There needs to be learning genuinely in both directions. You cannot come from outside and say, well, the best way to do this is that. You don't know that. By getting local actors involved who really understand the context, who understand the relationships, who understand the challenges, and by co-designing the solution, that's when you're going to see results. So I think that's what we mean by mutual partnership. If I think about some of the areas where we work, around health, for example, when people come from UK institutions in that sphere, they're learning things they didn't know about diseases that are more common here than they are in the UK. They're learning about ways of doing things that maybe are familiar here, but not in the UK. If we think about the Affirmative Action Act, for example, gender equality, promoting that is a priority here in Ghana, and it is in the UK as well. The UK doesn't have an Affirmative Action Act. So we get to look at how that happens, how that takes effect here in Ghana, what is the impact of that, what's the learning from that, and that will inform our approaches as well. So there is learning to be had from different countries' journeys.
So I get that, and when you say you're transitioning from aid to trade, I understand this. But I feel like trade has to be qualified, right? Because the way the structure is that generally we will sell raw things and you will sell value-added things. Now that is not sustainable because we have to have things we also add value to so we can make more money, employ more people. And to do that, we need better technology and better finance, right? But I'm not sure if it's from our government side or the way the thing is structured. There seems to be a lot of that still going on, where you export, whether it's cocoa beans or cocoa powder, cocoa whatever paste, and then you buy the chocolate from the UK or France or wherever. So those structures haven't changed much, so I don't know if you're going from aid to trade. It's frustrating because then you're still selling stuff, but you're not changing, you're not transforming.
And perhaps that frustration is a sign that we need to do things differently. We've had this system in place for decades, and yet still Ghana is primarily exporting unprocessed products without the value addition. So if I think about what we're now doing in that space, yes, there are ODA programs. One of those ODA programs has been working with Government of Ghana to develop investor frameworks, so a set of policies intended to encourage external investors to come to Ghana, set up business here. And one of the sectors that's focused on has been the auto sector. And since the introduction of that set of policies, 13 international car manufacturers are now assembling cars in Ghana, and Ghana is beginning to export those cars to other parts of the region. We're also looking at the spare parts that are needed for those cars. And indeed, just yesterday, I was signing an agreement for further investment into a car parts company up in Kumasi that has the potential also to export across the sub-region. In parallel with that, we see trade missions going in both directions. Over the time that I've been here, they've covered, for example, food and drink, agricultural machinery, healthcare, pharmaceuticals. Pharma is a great example where we have this private sector interest and engagement at the same time as working with Government of Ghana to understand what are the policies that are needed, the incentives that might encourage companies to start making those products here in Ghana. So it's trade, yes, aid, yes, investment, yes, partnerships, yes, all of that mixture of interventions that I think will lead to real progress.
Fair enough. A lot of this must come from the Ghana side in terms of areas of prioritization, but I feel, for example, you need to do value addition to agric before you move to automobiles, right? You walk before you run, and then you run before you fly. So that the sequence of transformation, the areas of focus, agribusiness, value addition, is more logical than to move straight to car assembly, if you understand me. So that's one. And number two, the financing, development finance must now pick some of those areas. So we used to have DFID, UK aid, but now there's British international investment. Those types of things must catalyze transformation in sectors that can pull more people along. Are there any examples of stuff like this? Is that your area of focus? Just talk to me about whether you're doing things that can add value in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, to take that question about, do you need to do agri-processing first?
Yes.
I don't think it needs to necessarily follow that sequence.
Okay.
You have a lot of people in Ghana whose jobs depend on agriculture.
Correct.
And so yes, it makes sense for there to be value addition and increased exports, well, first of all, reduced imports in that sector. Yes. But we don't need to wait for all of that to happen for other people in the economy to be moving into those different sectors, like production of pharmaceuticals, like manufacturing of automobiles. So Ghana's industrialization path will not look like other countries' industrialization path. So the fact that a set of countries went in that sequence does not mean that Ghana's also needs to. And then what are we doing with our development investment?
Yes.
So the investment that I talked about yesterday into this car parts manufacturer up in Kumasi, that came from British International Investments. So we've got the investment coming in on one side, alongside the ODA program that's about technical assistance and policy development on the other side. It's also true in garments and textiles, where British Investment International have invested in Ghanaian garment companies. We also see the British private sector taking part too. So for example, I visited a factory that is exporting school trousers to a popular supermarket chain in the UK. So, you know, maybe my son is going to school wearing school trousers that were made in Ghana. So we've got the ODA program that's helping to create the policy framework, bringing in the technical assistance. We've got development investment coming from BII, and we've got the British private sector playing a role as well.
So on the BII side, do they come with a long-term mindset? Is it development finance, or are they looking for the same returns as regular? Because we need to see how the financing goes to promote this. So just talk to me a bit about how that works.
So look, there's no point in BII financing projects that would get financing anyway.
Correct.
They need not to crowd out the private sector. They need to unlock the private sector. So part of BII's approach is about de-risking investments.
Correct.
So that they can attract cheaper private finance from others, and that makes the the investment viable. Recently, well, a couple of years ago now, in Ghana, BII launched its first ever dedicated SME fund.
Correct.
So this recognized that their normal transaction level was a bit too high for this market. And so they trialed this SME fund. It's called Ghana Investment Partners. And over the last couple of years, we've seen them investing in, I mean, by definition, small, medium enterprises, looking at things like services, for example. Also looking in some of the sectors that I've mentioned previously around agriculture, around health, and so on. So that's about BII recognizing it needs to adapt its model in order to suit the market and enable further projects to go ahead. BII works in partnership, yes, with other development finance instruments, but also with private finance here in Ghana.
So when we talk of economic diplomacy and you have these trade or Ghana-UK kind of meetings, is it to bring British business here, and do you advise them on which sectors are necessary, or is it to take Ghanaian business there? I just want to understand how those things work and whether there's a way of measuring the success.
So our ambition is is to increase the UK-Ghana economic partnership, right? So partly that's about trade, and that's very much in two directions. I'm pleased that even after the difficult economic years that we've all seen around the world since the pandemic. UK-Ghana trade has grown. It now stands at £1.5 billion. Actually, the vast majority, well, not the vast majority, over half of that is Ghanaian exports into the UK. Now, admittedly, a lot of that is from gold and oil, but other sectors are growing too, including agriculture and other things. Remind me of your question.
Yes, so how are you measuring? So you said 1.5 billion, so you are measuring it financially. Do you also have any ways of measuring the growth of that in terms of maybe 200 companies were formed within the past 5 years?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
And you asked about the aim of our economic dialogue, commercial dialogue.
Yes.
So partly it's about increasing trade.
Correct.
It's about raising awareness of the trade partnership agreement, which gives duty-free and quota-free access to the UK market for all goods coming from Ghana other than arms and ammunition.
Correct.
But it also allows Ghanaians to import, for example, farm machinery or other farm agricultural inputs duty-free. So there's the trade aspect to it. There is the business environment aspect to it as well. Yeah. And here, the interests of UK companies are very much aligned often with the interests of Ghanaian companies. Things that improve the business environment for Ghanaian companies also improve the business environment for British companies. And it's about getting things through the ports, it's about the relationship with the GRA, it's about corruption that businesses might encounter. So a range of issues that form market barriers, form business barriers. And it's also about commercial deals. You mentioned my predecessor earlier, and he was lucky enough to be here during a period of real boom in that commercial sector. That's been different in my time here because of Ghana's debt levels, because of the economic situation in both of our countries, frankly. But still, there's real appetite from British companies to do business in Ghana. And one of the things that regular dialogue has done has been to keep us focused on those important deals and to help see some of them through.
In terms of security, how do you see the sub-region? And I think Ghana likes to see itself as a haven of stability within a relatively concerning sub-region. Is that view correct from the perspective you come from?
Yeah, so look, we also see Ghana as a haven of stability in what has to be seen as a troubled region, right? Yeah. One of the changes that has happened during my tenure has been the growth of the security pillar of our relationship. And that has really been led by the Ghana as they see the challenges, particularly on their northern border, increase. Then obviously security goes up their priority list, and so it comes up the list of our bilateral priorities. We do see Ghana as a beacon of stability, and it's something that we prize very highly. It's been notable to see President Mahama's very deliberate outreach to those countries that have left ECOWAS and that are experiencing extreme violence from jihadist groups. And we've also seen under Ghana's previous government them take a lead in the region through the Accra Initiative, for example. So trying to bring countries together out of a recognition that this region is deeply connected. When it comes to the economy, when it comes to security, these countries are connected. And it's by bringing these countries together, by those countries together working out what needs to happen and taking the initiative, that I think is the best way for the region to overcome the challenges. And if countries like the UK can support that, then we're very happy to, because, as we touched on earlier, we live in an interconnected world. And the instability, the violence in the Sahel, of course it touches on the UK through things like migration, or perhaps it being easier to get illicit goods, maybe illegal drugs, whatever it might be, to the UK. So it's in Ghana's interest, it's in the region's interest, it's in the UK's interest.
The initiative was launched in 2017, MOU signed 2020, so we can say 8 years. How successful has the initiative been in preventing the spillover of terrorism? I believe that was the original intent from the Sahel region across the sub-region.
The Accra Initiative.
Yes.
So my understanding, and look, it's a regional initiative, so I'm talking about this as an outsider.
Yeah.
My understanding is that it's set out as an intelligence sharing mechanism, and that's absolutely crucial.
Yes.
There was a push for it to take on a more proactive, kinetic set of actions as well. That unfortunately came around the time that coups began to happen in some of the countries, that some of those countries moved towards leaving the
initiative,
the ECOWAS, and that obviously affected the initiative's prospects because there were difficult political relationships. I also understand that the defence relationships and then the intelligence relationships have continued to some extent, and I think that's really important. So look, it's not for the UK or any other country to say what should happen next. But I think that the collaboration between those countries, in whatever form that takes, maybe it's not the right time to do the 7 countries all together again who are members of the Accra Initiative, but subsets of them perhaps finding ways to work together, however that looks, I think is valuable.
Point of view is still talking to the outgoing British High Commissioner to Ghana, Excellency Harriet Thompson. We're discussing many things. Now we're looking internally. When we come back, we'll talk about reflections on democracy as she exits. Where is she going next? Stay with us.
My name is Anis Hafor. I'm currently serving as the chairman of the Barstow Ghana. What I've noticed with Barstow Ghana is that we are introducing the American curriculum for the first time into the country. And the interest that I have in it is that we want to do something that's a little different.
At the Barstow schools, we believe that true education extends beyond traditional learning. It is about preparing our students to thrive in a globally interconnected world. Our Ghana campus embodies this philosophy by offering a rigorous curriculum aligned with our Kansas City home campus.
Our mission is to promote sound scholarship and to give symmetrical development to mind, body, and character.
Remember who we are seeing now. At risk of prostate enlargement. We remember or her 20 ebitiminya prostate cancer. 5 bitimi afamu nadia ubefamu.
Actually, this is not my fault.
And to wada, entina midi manichi Executive Prostate Center.
Executive Prostate Center is a unique medical center where we harmonize in-depth traditional medicine with cutting-edge science and technology to cure, to treat, and to prevent diseases like prostate enlargement, prostate cancer.
Executive Prostate Center. Madame home facilities no any professional medical care.
Sisi a bibia clear system ni. Ye nro ne so de natural. Into we koso afa ma ye.
Executive Prostate Center. My cured.
We're still here on The Point of View talking to Harriet Thompson, who is the British High Commissioner to Ghana, on her way out. Now, I don't know if this is correct, but in the past month and a half, I've had to chat with at least 4 Western ambassadors, either on their way out or have left. The American ambassador, the Danish ambassador, the German ambassador was on his way out last week. You're on your way out. So is it like, do you guys sit and plan this like, we're all leaving Ghana at the same time to go and play a big football match somewhere? What's going on?
We're certainly not going to play football, I can assure you of that. So in our system, we try to organise things so that a High Commissioner can have a good amount of time to develop relationships with particularly the politicians before an election happens. And then they move on in time for the next one to come in and do the same thing. So that's why our cycle is timed like this. So I arrived 6 months after Nana Akufo-Addo's government started their second term, and I leave 6 months after President Mahama's government has come in. in order to give my successor a good chunk of time to really understand the country before that milestone in Ghana's democracy, in any country's democracy.
Do you support any party during an election?
No.
When you were watching the 2024 election, how do you, because I'm sure you would want to know where the election would go. So is there a sense in which you would be made to predict the winner? Or
No. So yes, we have an interest in where the election will go. Of course we do. And that is both professional, but it's also personal because we live in this country and we're interested in what happens in this country. But the relationship between Ghana and the UK is much more than whoever sits in the President's chair in Jubilee House and our Prime Minister's chair in the UK and this chair here in Ghana. It's much deeper than that, and it will survive. I believe it will continue to strengthen no matter who's in government in Ghana or in the UK. So yes, we're interested, but we are entirely neutral in that question.
So the relationship is regime agnostic, you say?
It's regime agnostic.
Although there's some interesting things. For example, Nana Akufo-Addo's party likes to see themselves as center-right. And that aligns in a way with the Conservative Party. They actually go for joint events. And then John Mahama's party, center-left Social Democrats, generally like to see themselves as Labour type. And interestingly, we've had that transition, right? The left has won in the UK, the left has won in Ghana. Does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because our interests are aligned beyond the interests of the government.
Okay.
And one of the joys of my time in Ghana has been getting to know some of the vast array of partnerships that happen without anything to do with governments on either side. We have partnerships between academic institutions, we have partnerships between research institutions, between scientists, between engineers. And a lot of that happens without even our knowledge, let alone our intervention or our support. So I think that just goes to emphasize that no matter who sits in power on either side of the partnership, that partnership will endure. It's about a partnership between countries, not just a partnership between
Were you
governments.
surprised at the election outcome, though?
Was I surprised at the election outcome? I was surprised. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have dared predict the election outcome, to be honest. And although, you know, there were lots of gossipy conversations about where it might be going, I would never have put anything in writing.
Wow.
I think, so speaking to Ghanaians after the election, a lot of people were surprised by the extent of the NDC win. They were surprised also, I think, by the turnout, which in turn was a surprise for me, right? Because Ghana's turnout, I think, was around 70%, 80%.
So generally, when governments change, turnouts are low. When governments stay, turnouts are high. That's a bizarre trend.
Yeah, but what Ghanaians saw as a low turnout
Which
in your election in 2024, that's a very high turnout in UK terms.
Wow.
I think.
For us, 63 is very low.
Yeah.
So it's mostly 72, 75-ish. Yeah. Wow. So it was a low turnout in Ghana terms, but still high. Just last point on elections. You've had so many elections in your country now. I mean, I think how many prime ministers have you had in the past? There's a view that even though Ghana is a stable democracy, elections are very precarious. And people tend to worry that one of these days it could spill over. Is that an area of concern? I ask it because 20 years ago, there were a lot of election support programs to make sure things don't go south. But it seems to me a lot of the partners feel like Ghana will figure things out. So even though the elections are very whatever, they seem to say, look, you guys have found a way. I'm not sure that that's a false sense of security, particularly in the sub-region that we're in, or whether genuinely you can say since 93, having had all these cycles of elections, you found a way, therefore your institutions are okay. I'm not sure where you sit on that. I don't know.
So not only in the run-up to and around the election period, but throughout my time in Ghana, my visits around the country, Ghana's commitment to democracy is very clear to me, and the depth of that commitment is very clear to me. It's a very politically aware country, a very politically aware population. You go to a small village somewhere, and you'll see the NPP office and the NDC office, and everybody knows, you know, who are the local representatives of their parties, etc. So that, it feels to me like democracy is just part of how Ghana does things these days. One of the things that surprised me around election time was just a couple of people talking about their worries around the extent of violence, and looking at the examples of what's happened elsewhere in this sub-region. But I mean, Ghana's democracy is solid, and we see it strengthening. We see the institutions strengthening, and we see that commitment to you know, changing things through the ballot box rather than any other
there was a concern, particularly during the last few years of the last government, that they were not very open to certain kinds of criticism. Protests were not allowed necessarily freely. I mean, young people were arrested for a protest they wanted to do to the Jubilee House. You remember, some were detained. And this is particularly important because during your time here, you had tried to comment on Oliver Barker-Vormawor's the tribulations. I want a better word for that. The trials, whatever. And you had some serious backlash from the then IGP, right? So yes, people like Ghanaians want to vote, generally peaceful, but some people felt there was a bit of an intolerant streak within the previous administration, particularly in the second half of the second term. And the response your tweet got from the IGP, some people felt it was almost overboard, right? So I want you to answer the previous question with the context I've just painted.
So answer the question about people's right to speak up.
Yes.
Within the context of that, the response to that tweet.
No, democracy, freedom of speech, free media, because you are saying we are maturing as a people for democracy, but you've mentioned there's been violence, and the government, at least the previous government, was accused of being very intolerant to certain kinds of dissent. So that puts your answer in a bit of contention.
I mean, there were those accusations, and we saw that particularly on social media, also in the mainstream media to an extent as well, I think, people complaining about that sense. What I would say is that Ghana's civil society is very strong. Ghana's media is very strong. We do see investigative journalists putting out some let's say some quite shocking reports that really catch people's attention and do lead to change as well. And that's absolutely crucial. In this era of misinformation and disinformation, deliberately manipulating, I'm not even going to say manipulating the facts because it's blatant untruths, a lot of it. It's so important to be clear on the facts and to have respected outlets that will tell people really what's going on. So that free press, free media is absolutely crucial. The vibrant civil society is absolutely crucial. These organisations, these institutions, they play at least as important a role in a country's democracy as, for example, the Electoral Commission or the National Peace Council or whatever it is.
Finally, on that, did you what's your reflection on your Dampare issue? Did you feel you did the wrong thing in tweeting? Did you think you overreacted?
I think that there was a message read into those few words. It was a very short tweet, a message read in there that was not intended. I had a very good relationship with Inspector General Police Dampare. I thought that he did a really important job during the elections, we were on very good terms. So that is water under the bridge, I'm pleased to say. I
see. So you are still friends.
We're still friends.
Use that in there. What's been your best moment here?
Oh gosh, that's a really difficult question. There have been so many. I think probably the one that touched me deeply on the professional level was taking part in the commemoration of the sacking of Kumasi in 2024, last year. Because it really made me think about the nature of our country's relationships. And the fact that that was about British soldiers wrecking this city and doing all they could to overcome the spirit of the Asante Nation. Not so long ago, 100 years is not so long ago. And yet I was invited to take part in that ceremony. I reflect on all of the work that my colleagues at the High Commission do with such a wide variety of Ghanaian partners. That was a very touching moment.
Yeah. Congratulations, and wherever you're posted, good luck.
Thank you.
By the way, you're still in the service?
I am.
Okay, so who knows, you may come back one day. Harriet Thompson is the outgoing British High Commissioner to Ghana. We've been chatting to her on many things, and you can tell Ghana has made an impression. Long may it last. Thanks for watching tonight's edition of the show. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.